Well, hello, everyone. Well, welcome to our live Q&A session. My name is Johnnie Nguyen. I'm the current chair of the Law Student Division. And with me, we have the Honorable Judy Perry Martinez, who is the president of the American Bar Association. Judy, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And Johnnie, thanks for inviting me to sit down with you.
And again, Judy, thank you for your time. We know you're busy, so we appreciate you always being so accessible to law students. And so what's going on with law students, I think a lot of us are really concerned right now. A lot of us feel kind of left in the dark with a lot of decisions being made regarding COVID-19 and its effect on the legal profession. And the Law Student Division, we put out this survey and we had over 1,700 responses. And it was great because students really poured out their heart in a lot of the personal matters they were going through and expressed a lot of the issues. And so we wanted to facilitate this conversation to maybe get some answers to those issues or at least give us some direction. So I think I'm just going to jump right into it and just start asking questions, and maybe you and I can both kind of tackle them on and get them addressed. The first big issue that I think a lot of law students are super concerned about is the bar exam. And so one of the questions that was asked was, I'm concerned about the July bar exam. What are states doing right now?
So Johnnie, if you don't mind, I'm going to take just a few minutes and give some thoughts to everyone as we sit here today, because that bar exam question is so very much weighing on the minds of so many. And I think it's important that people understand what we want to do in terms of helping law students in the best ways that we can. And first, as I said before, thank you so very much for inviting me to join you today, because we wanted to reach out to law students at the ABA, and certainly I did personally, because we know that there are so many challenges out there right now for 1Ls, 2Ls, and particularly for 3Ls. And we want to make sure that we are helping in the best way that the American Bar Association can. Before the pandemic, I made a habit, if you will, of visiting law schools across the country in this last year and a half as president-elect and now president. And interestingly, when I go to a city, I try to visit law schools and meet with students and faculty and go into classrooms. And then I was very much looking forward to being a part of several commencement exercises this year. But here we find ourselves. And in that sense, it's a completely different world in so many ways, isn't it? And like all crises, there are, I think the thing that keeps me going is to find some moments of silver linings. And all of us have seen some of those silver linings, and people that we've seen step up and help others, and people that we've seen push through the really hard times. And each of us has had those examples in our communities. And then we come to this time together, and I think about how even before we didn't take up the opportunity to talk about these tough issues and to talk together on this kind of platform. So in that sense, it's a hard time and a crisis that's come about, but it's really made a difference in our ways that we can communicate. And the reason that this Q&A session and the questions that we want to hear about from all of you today is so important is because we know that there's a lot of frustration and concern and fear, and rightfully so, among law students. And Johnnie, you've been such a wonderful partner to work with and to have open communications with, as you've helped us understand and really hear the voice of law students across the country. So I wanted to thank you for that. Truly, truly thank you for that and all you've done throughout the year, but particularly in these moments. And whether we're talking about educational debt or economic recessions or other hard times, what we know is that lawyers have faced some of that in the past, but right now in the pandemic is a truly different type of challenge, because it's affecting all of us and it's affecting you as law students in ways that we have not seen before. And I think it's really important as we start this conversation for law students to know that it's because of you and other leaders that we are getting every day a better understanding of what's happening to law students across the country. And I think one of the most important messages is that you're not alone in this, and that the American bar and the profession as a whole is here for you. And I know, because I know many of the people who are your deans and your professors and your law clinic directors and advisors and those in the administrations, that they care as profoundly as we do, and even more so about your future. So it's with that kind of context that we think about what we can do to help and how we can best help. And on the issue of the bar exam, what we know, and I think that many of you listening know, is that those are decisions on the bar exam, of course, that are made not by the American bar. They are made by each of the individual state Supreme Courts, and with the assistance and input and guidance of their committees on bar admissions that typically are of those state Supreme Courts and appointed by them. And those are made up of individuals who are bar examiners, and often deans sit at those tables, as well as experienced bar leaders who have in the past served the bar. And they're making these decisions on the best available information. We know that they have a lot of options out there, Johnnie, and we're starting to see some of them make their announcements. We know how critical it is that all of you hear from your respective states about when the bar will be held. Will it go forward in July as planned? Will it be moved to the fall? And what their plans are. And there are some, good resources out there for you to keep abreast of that. I know the National Conference of Bar Examiners has an updated webpage where they're trying to keep that as current as possible. I believe yesterday, California made its decision. Utah has made its decision on how it's going to go forward, and other states have done so as well. But we're watching all of that as closely as we can. And one of the things that we have done, of course, is to issue a guidance with regard to those states who want to have a path forward if they don't go forward with the July bar. And I'll be happy to talk with you when you're ready to do so about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Judy. Sorry for skipping over your intro. I totally forgot about that.
That's okay.
Looking at a lot of the questions, there's a lot of questions concerning what the ABA's role in the whole decision process making is. I was wondering if you could just help us just understand, what does the ABA do? What is the ABA? What does the ABA do, and what authorities do they have?
So the American Bar Association as a whole is the largest organization of lawyers and legal professionals in the world. And we have 4 incredibly straightforward and critically important goals, and that's serving our profession, improving the profession, enhancing diversity and eliminating bias, and the advancement of the rule of law. And each of those are looked at by our association as equally important and critical. It is what drives everything we do. And of course, in the context of those goals, we have a section of legal education and admission to the bar, which operates separately as the accrediting body for the Department of Education for law schools in this country. And as a consequence, they are the body who put forth and vet and also bring forth the accreditation standards for law schools. So that's a different part of the ABA than I'm involved in. I'm an officer of the American Bar Association, and that body is the accrediting body for the Department of Education. But the ABA and the officers of the ABA, what we do is speak out on issues of critical importance, and we do that based on policy, Johnnie, as you know. And that's important to understand because all of our policy comes from our House of Delegates, and in the absence of it meeting, in lieu of it meeting, it can be by the Board of Governors. On very rare occasions has that happened. But that policy-making body is made up of lawyers from across the country and law students who have representatives in the House of Delegates, and it meets twice a year. And very interestingly, there are issues that are debated and issues that are brought forth. And if the House adopts that policy statement, then it becomes policy of the American Bar Association. And that's how I go out and speak based on that policy. That's how we lobby Congress. That's how we do our work in total and full, because we have policy that is at the foundation of our work. And law students are a part of that with representation in the House of Delegates. Also, maybe some of the people on the call know Michaela Posner, who's our law student representative on the ABA Board of Governors. She's been a wonderful member of that board. And then I understand that Johnnie will be taking that place on the Board of Governors and was recently elected for that position. So we're looking forward to having him join the board at the beginning of the next bar year.
Awesome. Thanks, Judy. And so with
you know, Johnnie, one other thing I'll mention in the, go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to go on my next question, but you can.
You know, one thing I'll mention in the context of the pandemic, you were asking about the ABA and what does it do? You know, just to give you a sense of some of the things that in the pandemic context that we're doing, we have a new task force on legal needs arising out of the pandemic, which has brought together so many bodies and entities to really focus on the legal needs of the public arising out of the pandemic, not only the ones that are emerging as a result directly of the pandemic, but the ones that are being brought forth to you know, the near-term radar of all of us as we think about the ratcheting up of domestic violence incidents and the impact of the pandemic on marginalized populations and communities, and how evictions are starting to really have a huge uptick, and what we know is going to happen with bankruptcies and so much more. And so we've really convened ABA entities, the Conference of Chief Justices, the National Center for State Courts, the National Association of Legal Aid and Indigent Defenders, and so many more, to really focus on how we can mobilize pro bono in the months and days ahead to help the public in their needs.
Awesome. Perfect. That's actually a perfect segue to my next question about what the ABA has done as it relates to the bar exam. I was wondering if you could touch on maybe the resolution that was recently passed, and then also other conversations that you've had and other stuff you've been working on.
Sure. You know, it was really right in the midst of all of us realizing that this pandemic was going to be something more than just a few weeks of interruption of our days and our lives, that we came to the very swift conclusion that we needed to help law students in the best way we could. And as I said, the decision on the state bar exams is one that rests with the states, but we also believed and worked very hard and very thoughtfully to put together a guidance for state Supreme Courts and for state bar admissions committees to consider that if they weren't going to give the exam in July, that they could in fact possibly create a rule or modify their existing rules on bar admissions and practice to allow law graduates who had not taken the bar before to actually practice under the direct supervision of an attorney in good standing. And that's what we did. The Board of Governors passed it because our House of Delegates doesn't meet again until our annual meeting in the beginning of August. But the board stepped up and really considered the resolution and voted to support the resolution, which had the support, I'm happy to say, of the Law Student Division Council, as well as the other entities, several other entities within the American Bar Association. And what that does is afford a path for someone to practice under the direct supervision of an attorney until they take the bar exam, and that can be as far out as the end of 2021.
Perfect. And so with that being said, a question that was asked, I think is really important, is why do we need to take a bar exam in the first place? Why do we have something like this in our profession?
So that's a really important question. It's one that we should constantly, in a mode of continuous improvement, always ask ourselves, you know, and I think it's really important to understand that the bar exam is there to protect the public in no uncertain terms. It is meant to be a measure of competency. It is meant to be a measure of knowing that those who have graduated have met some certain standards of performance in terms of their competence and have been tested to do so. And what that says is that we are like all other professions in this country that have as well a testing or performance standard. And you know those professions of engineering and CPA, certified public accountants, and medical doctors, and so many others. And what that bar exam does is to give greater assurance that there'll be individuals who are coming in who meet the qualifications for practice. That bar exam is one important component of it. Of course, also character and fitness is another important component of it. And those would, of course, continue to be critically important, that the states go ahead and continue with those undertakings as well.
Cool. Now, a question that was asked in the Q&A, and I think it's important to ask, is there a date that all states have to make the decision by? And I kind of know the answer to that, but I was wondering if you could explain the paradigm of maybe the relationship between the ABA and the states.
So the states make those individual decisions, right? And I know that they are working very hard on those decisions that they're making. So there's no one certain date. The bar exam, of course, is given traditionally in July. Some states are moving toward a September date or an October date for their bar exam at the state level. I know that California has done that, as well as Massachusetts and New York as well. I know that the National Conference of Bar Examiners has stated that they will have 2 offerings in the fall, alternative dates for individuals. And you know, there are other states who are moving forward on the path that they think is most appropriate for their schools and for their students and for their communities. It all is impacted by where particular locales are in terms of the impact of the pandemic on them, the impact of the COVID-19 on them, how they're faring in that, what their facilities are that may be available. We all know that, for instance, in New York, the Javits Center, where the bar is traditionally held, is being utilized as a hospital. And there are other creative solutions that individuals are trying to at least consider across the states in terms of alternative venues. There are important considerations to be given with regard to how they go about that and whether they can accomplish it. And we wanted to make sure with this guidance that we were at least offering up some possibilities for law students to be able to practice under the direct supervision and earn some livelihood, take on their responsibilities in practice while they waited for that bar exam to be made available to them.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Judy. And I know there's a lot more questions in the Q&A about the bar exam, but I want to make sure we have time to hit on the other subjects. So towards the end, I'll try to squeeze in some more questions, but I want to hit on the other subjects we have planned to talk about. So I'm going to transition over to talking about careers in the legal profession right now as it relates to post-COVID world and the legal job market right now, and situations that law students have found themselves in. And so one of the questions said, I'm concerned about my job prospects. What do you expect the impact on jobs to be? And I'd like to get advice on getting a job in this environment.
So I can only imagine that law students, and both those who are graduating and those who were either searching still for a position this summer or had something lined up that's been withdrawn, the kind of concerns that you have right now. That was those were sources of income for you that you were expecting to have in hand over a summer of hard work, or those of you who are moving on to take a job that maybe hasn't materialized or in a very, very difficult decision. I cannot even, have a real sense of how that's making things even more difficult in these difficult times when people are trying to, whether you have a family that you have to support or you are in a position that you're supporting yourself. It's adding to the stresses that so many of you are feeling. And I know it's very, very challenging and difficult. I think the job prospects are going to be candid. I think the jobs prospects are going to be very difficult. And I owe you that to say that we cannot underestimate what the challenges are going to be. We know some people are holding on to their jobs, and we know others who have been advised that they can't. We are hopeful that as firms see a little bit more of what's happening to them and how long they may be before getting back to whatever that new normal is, that they will be able to step up if they've had to pull back and maybe step up again, or if not, help people find something that maybe not full-time, maybe it's less than full-time, or some other alternative. But I think there's some really good resources out there that should be explored. A few of those, of course, are the ABA Career Services website, which has some great resources, especially if you've got to, for instance, retweak your resume at this time. There's a great app there for resume building and working on your resume. And it really does have some good information on how to pursue careers this summer and elsewhere, and internships and elsewhere. Also, the Law Student Division website of the American Bar Association has some great resources on it, and I urge you to explore that as well. But take those up and utilize them to the fullest, but also I think it's very important that you become individually thoughtful and creative about where you can look. And it can get really discouraging when you're getting turned down, or even more so when you had something in hand and then you were told later that it wasn't going to materialize. And what I can offer you is the encouragement that I remain hopeful that you're going to find something. And I think I remain hopeful, I know, that you're going to do your best in order to search for it. And what we can do is really stand ready to try to assist you as you go about those searches. And maybe it's just as simple as lawyers having a coffee with you, a lawyer in your community having coffee with you, even if it's over a platform like this one or a phone call, to give you some suggestions that may be very local and specific that could help. The American Bar Association offers so many resources to law students and to those in the profession who, by the way, are also in practice who may be needing help as well. And we're trying to do that as best we can. But there are so many of these connections that are local. I urge you, for instance, to do something that I did early in my career, and maybe not early enough, but to get involved in your local state or affinity bar association if you can, to reach out to leaders there to see if they can be of any assistance, and to be patient with them because they are juggling a lot of issues and they have a lot of things for both their clients and their bar association responsibilities. But there may be somebody you know through a synagogue or a church or a mosque, or maybe someone you know just from your neighborhood or from a basketball court or a yoga class who's a lawyer. And don't ever think that they can't be asked or approached to say, can you give me a few minutes of your time? 15 minutes will do me well. And I think almost to a person, if not to a person, most lawyers have a real drive to help others, and they want to help law students. And so even if they can't offer you a job per se, they may be able to give you the most helpful tips about what you can do in your community, your home community, or wherever you find yourself in order to seek out a position.
Yeah, Judy, I appreciate that answer a lot. And I think it's a great answer because I think you own up to it's difficult right now. And a lot of attorneys right now say, things are gonna be fine. This whole thing will just blow over. But like, it's not. It's something that we should identify as an issue and then start addressing it. So I appreciate you saying that. And I wanted to share with all the viewers, especially the law students who hopefully at least one of you guys can relate with me. I personally lost my summer associate job this summer, which was really, it took a huge toll on me because it was something I lined up so early on in my 2L year. And then I got an email literally mid to late April, like literally like a week and a half ago, saying they're canceling the program and they didn't offer any severance or any postgraduate offer or anything like that, which is devastating because it's already late April and I don't know where to find a job now. And that weekend they emailed me down on a Friday. And so I had the weekend to spend just grieving on it, which you should do if if something like this happened to you, take the time to heal, take the time to just let it hurt a little, and then figure out a game plan afterwards. But just let it grieve and let it soak. And but I talked on the phone with a lot of my mentors, and a lot of these mentors, when they entered the legal profession varied. They were either really early on or around 2008, around the recession as well, and then also recently, just now. And so I got a wide range of advice, and those who were in the 2008, which their advice kind of hit me a little differently in that they talked about how what was going on through their head was just another test of resilience, which I think stuck with me. Where, I mean, to get to law school, to get to how far you guys are right now, you guys have been pretty resilient with a lot of the things you guys have to put up with, either through your own path of education or through your own family issues or through own personal relationships. These are all these issues that you have to constantly be resilient for yourself and for others all the time to get to where you are. This is just another test for us to be resilient, is how I'm looking at it. And just through looking through, reflecting on my life, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, just reflecting on your life, you will be okay. You're going to make it through. It's rough, but we're just going to have to stand back up. And just to, not more substantively with what I did, was when I got the email, I was really upset, but I knew, after I collected myself, I just shot back. I understand it's a difficult time right now. If there's any work going on this summer, please let me know about it. I'd be open to it. And I hope to talk to you about a law clerk position in the future, or a possible associate position in the future. That's what I did. And a couple of days later, I got a call from the managing partner, and he said he really appreciated that note and how understanding it was. And I found out that it wasn't even his decision. It was actually like the higher up of the firm. So it was like a top-down decision. And so just stay connected with your firm, tap into your network, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Because like Judy said, I think lawyers are really do want to help you, and they feel for you. And so on that note, just a couple more questions on the career. So Judy, how should students prepare for a possible remote internship, if that's what's leading with them? And I asked you this maybe because I know you worked at a firm and you've been in managing positions before. What advice would you give for students who are entering their internships this summer?
Well, folks who have been practicing like I have for many decades are actually learning a lot of skills from generations of younger lawyers and law students about how to communicate remotely and how to really create a sense of community and a sense of relationship in this new world of platforms, because y'all have been doing it so well for so long. So that part of it, I think you have down, and actually we're learning from you. But what I can tell you is that, there are different methods of briefing styles. There are different methods of understanding who your audience is. If you're given an opportunity to report on research that you've done to a young or senior associate, that's going to take on a different sort of approach than maybe if you're briefing a group of partners who are an essential first-line team in a case. If you're doing work for a small business directly and you're brought into that conference room to help address those issues, if you have that kind of opportunity, which I hope you do, that's going to be a different briefing style. So I think it's really important to try to learn that and to take some time not only to work on the substantive issues of what your area of law or what you're asked to look at for a particular internship if it's remote, but also think about how you can better your skills in briefing and in presenting and in making sure that your ideas and your critical messaging is getting across. And those are, maybe some people used to call those soft skills, and I would suggest to you that those are as critically important as the other skills that you have in terms of developing your substantive knowledge of the law.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Judy. So looking at time, I'm going to try to transition on a little bit more, and we'll hopefully have some time for questions afterwards. I want to talk about debt maybe, because as you know, student debt is probably one of the biggest issues with law students right now, because a lot of us, we took on over 6 figures in student loans, and we're about to graduate in possibly a recession. And so it's a little scary. And I was wondering if you could talk about maybe student loans, what we should do while we can't work or take the bar exam and stuff like that. And maybe talk about what the ABA has been doing.
So the term crushing comes to mind when I think about student debt levels, both now and what they were as we came into this period of time in the pandemic. But I know those are weighing heavily on people at the moment. With numbers of an average of over 130,000 of debt from private law schools and 95,000 or so from public law schools. And then you add on to that the loans that people have taken out for undergrad, the numbers just keep soaring. And it is a huge burden on individuals, especially individuals who thought that they have a livelihood in front of them in the short distant future. And so when you couple that with the issues of what public interest salaries are, where people want to pursue that makes an even more complex situation even more difficult. I know that there has been some relief, as I understand it, from the stimulus package with non-accrual of interest for the next 6 months, I believe, and relief on payments under some of the programs for at least the time being. But the bottom line is that you're going to be facing this debt afterwards. You're going to be facing it in the future. And the time you lose is very difficult in order to make that up. And that's really one of the reasons that we looked at this practice guidance for practice under direct supervision, to hopefully get some people at least back on track to where they thought they would be during this time period. And the ABA, of course, is watching all that and trying its best to understand that. And we are lobbying on issues. In fact, the issue of the relief in the stimulus package was in part the result of the ABA working in a coalition of about 90 organizations, as I recall, which had come together to talk about that relief that was needed as an element of the stimulus package. And it was because of that collective voice that gathered together in associations of the stature of the American Bar Association, who Congress listens to on many issues. And we advocate in a very respectful and forceful way, that we were able to make sure that that was in fact a part of the stimulus package. And the ABA does that through its governmental affairs office with a terrific professional team, as well as individual lawyer advocates who just last week, even though we typically every year descend on Capitol Hill for ABA Day and go visit and fan out from state and local bar leaders from across the country, go and fan out to talk about issues of critical importance in the ABA's advocacy, the Legal Services Corporation funding, and issues on the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Act, and issues on rural broadband, which is becoming so very important for education and medical services and legal services in our country, particularly with people at home. We couldn't do that in person last week. So we took everything we had. The staff is terrific, and they created a digital ABA Day. And we had literally thousands of people advocating from across the country. And that's the power of the ABA. And that's the power of what the ABA's voice means. And most importantly, one of the critical things that I hope you walk away with from this time together is understanding that your voice can be a part of all that. As a law student, when you are a part of the ABA, you have a voice in how we advocate. You have a voice in how our policies go to the House of Delegates, how they work through the law student division. And that becomes so important on so many fronts.
Thanks, Judy. I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of students ask what they can do, and I've got emails over the years, and I want to, and not a lot of people know about the law student division of the ABA, or that there even is one. And something that we've been trying to do really hard was to share with students that we exist, and what you can, and how you can work with us, and how ABA policy is made from the grassroots level all the way up to pushing it to Congress. And so I'll take a moment. I want to share kind of some examples of how policy was pushed through the law student division and how students' voice was applied here. So the ABA Law Student Division is one of the many divisions within the ABA. And as straightforward as we represent the 110,000 law students in the country. And so our leadership council, when we always we're getting feedback from students and we're hearing what the issues are, and then we think about what policies we create to help serve students. And so a couple years ago, this amazing council, they talked about the uniform bar exam and how they wanted more states to adopt the uniform bar exam. And so what the ABA Law Student Division did was they proposed a resolution saying states should adopt the UBE, and they fleshed out all the details, and it was a very detailed, very law review-esque type of report full of a lot of data and statistics about why the UBE would be best serving for most states. And the Law Student Division, they lobbied the entire ABA with it through the House of Delegates, which is over like 600 members, if I'm correct. They lobbied most of them, and they, throughout this meeting, they were literally like canvassing to different groups and talking about the resolution and getting support, getting endorsements from it from other entities within the ABA. And then towards when the House of Delegates meets, the House of Delegates is the policymaking body of the ABA. When they met, the law students got up, and these are like 2Ls and 3Ls who got up in a room of 600 attorneys who were, these are not just any attorneys, but like they're leading, these attorneys are attorneys leading their own state's bar organizations. They got up and they lowered it up, and they talked about why you should support the UBE, and people were convinced. They passed the resolution, and now it's official ABA policy that we support the UBE and the state should adopt it. And that's just one example. There's been hundreds of it. My council right now is we're working on some student debt relief types of resolutions that we'll release soon. But so how can law students help in that is, I'm really accessible. You guys can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and you guys can just tell me what's going on with you guys, or maybe somewhere to ask me if the ABA currently has policy on it, or if we don't, maybe we can talk and work about how we can create that policy. And I won't be on the council forever, but I'll always know who to defer it to and get it done. So,
yeah. And Johnnie, let me give you a further example really quickly,
sure.
if you don't mind. The 2015 policy on removing from the character and fitness questionnaires, questions about treatment and diagnoses, right? And making sure that was going to be spread across the country. That was tremendously driven by law students who understood what was going on, and other collaborating individuals in sections of the ABA and entities of the ABA. And just to give you an example, that once something becomes policy, it doesn't just sit. I recently wrote a blog for the Access Lex platform that came out last month on we've got to stop asking these questions that we shouldn't be asking on character and fitness. And the states that have done it, we're applauding, and the other states that haven't considered what they're going to do, I haven't made a decision, that needs to change, and urging them to all do so. So that work of so many in the House of Delegates, including law students who were a part of it, does in fact propel ABA advocacy through letters to Congress, through lobbying for legislation, through things like writing op-ed pieces and writing blogs about important issues that we know that law students care about.
Yeah. Thanks, Judy. And so I'm going to transition over to talk a little bit about legal education just a bit. So a lot of the questions are around pass, fail, or credit, no credit, effects on GPA, and then just specific issues with their school. So one of the very specific questions that I think is affecting a few students is that my schools went pass fail, and it's affecting the eligibility of my scholarship that is contingent on my GPA. What do you think I can do?
So I think, with regard to particular scholarships or actions by schools, the best thing a law student can do is to create a dialogue with his or her school. I think it's really important that you start there and make sure that, your concerns are being raised in a way and being raised with the right individuals to hopefully be heard. And those are important issues for individual law students, and they're also issues that can impact your ability to go forward, your ability to make the right decisions for your own career and your own life and your own professional advancement in years to come. And so, that's really where you need to start. I think it's important to do so. Certainly there is at the ABA section of legal education and admission to the bar, which I referenced earlier. You can send comments and questions there if you have a question that hasn't been addressed or you can't get an answer to at your law school. Again, I hope you understand, with some patience and understanding that they are juggling a lot right now, as they always are. But at the same time, there may be a way to get some general guidance there. They don't have the bandwidth to dig into everyone's situation. But the other thing to do is, of course, as I said earlier, Johnnie, is to turn to a trusted advisor or person in the profession that maybe can help you think things through and just bounce ideas off of about how you can best address your situation. That may be a professor you have a relationship with or head of a clinic, or it may be somebody else in the community.
Yeah, thanks, Judy. And no, you nailed it on the head with that. It's a lot of these issues it's really localized, and I hope to encourage law students to reach out to the local bar exams if they feel like their school is doing something like not communicating with law students on decision making, which I know irritates a lot of law students. Something my school did that I was really grateful for was that before they went pass fail, they actually posed out a school-wide survey, and then they released the majority of those results and they talked, and it was just, the transparency is really nice. And the feeling that your voice was inputted into the decision making is really good, especially when it's real.
And I know some schools have had a good practice that I've heard about, which is having, and some of them had this before the pandemic, and others have created it, and that is coffee, remote coffees with the dean on a regular basis to keep that communication flow going. And I know that's been in some cases a big help. I think UC Irvine dean is one of the deans that did that, and it was applauded far and wide.
Yeah. My dean and I, he's been doing like these weekly lunches with us, which is really nice. And so it's just keeping us up to date. And some of these lunches aren't even like super substantive. They're just staying in touch and sharing the issues, which is just nice to communicate with your school. And so let's say hypothetically, if this lasts into the fall, or remote learning lasts into the fall, how will this affect 1Ls, 2Ls, and 3Ls, do you think, or just all students?
I don't think right now we have the answer to that. And I know that there has been some freeing up of the temporarily of the online guidelines, if you will. I don't know what will happen in the fall. I think there's some exploration going on by the ABA section of legal ed and admissions to the bar about the possibility of having getting some authority with regard to distance learning to make some decisions in that regard. Right now, it's just short term in terms of the authorities being given. But I think we all have to stop for a moment and think about a few things, if I may. Number one, there are so many people who are doing their best and acting earnestly to try to figure this out. These are unprecedented times, and I know that might sound trite in so many ways, but I can tell you, in my position here in this year of service as president, we are facing issues on most days that we've never often thought about. I had to be forced to think about, and I see people all around me on the ABA's professional staff and lawyer leaders who are taking time from their practice settings, whether they're in government or corporate law departments or in practice settings, judges who are thinking long and hard and collectively and collaboratively about solutions, not only those that are safe and those that will absolutely work, but really trying to think innovatively about how we can do what we need to do in order to support law students, in order to support the public, in order to support lawyers in practice. You are all the future of our profession. And that's the second thing I think is so important to think about, that there's these people out there who care and are working to do their best. They may not always get it right. We may not always get it right, but we're really trying. Secondly, that you are, and we know that you are the future of our profession. So it is absolutely critical that we do what we can do to support you. It is absolutely what we should be doing, of course, but it makes so much sense for all that we believe in terms of our profession, that we give you your best and brightest chance to succeed, because our profession doesn't succeed without your success. Our profession doesn't succeed unless all of you can stand tall and contribute intellectually, contribute in terms of your commitment and dedication to the public, and contribute in also many ways to what we know is a justice system that needs each and every one of you. And that can be no matter where you end up in your practice, it can be no matter what you end up doing in terms of even staying in the profession in the traditional sense of being at a law firm, or being a solo practitioner, or having what we'd all consider, traditional jobs in the law. Because you can go out as a law student and also be a thought leader in so many other ways. You can be at so many tables, just like this one, and contribute so much. And we want you to be able to have those opportunities. We had them, and we want you to have them.
Thanks so much, Judy. It's good to know someone gets it, someone who understands. Yeah, I think law students are just really scared right now, and we don't know what the futures look like. And talking with the ABA, a lot of folks there, we know that law students are the future, and people are always telling us that for the profession. But in order for us to be the future, to have a good future, we have to have a strong basis of support right now. And so, let's see, some more questions about legal education. If you could explain the relationship between our ABA, the NCBE, and then the legal education, the ABA section of legal education. I was wondering if you could explain those three relationships and those authorities.
So the ABA section of legal ed and admissions to the bar is a part of the ABA, but it is the accrediting body for the Department of Education, like I said. So it sets the accreditation standards, and of course, as many of you know, does the periodic visits and evaluations of law schools for that accreditation process. The NCBE is a separate organization. It's the National Conference of Bar Examiners. And again, people may not realize that there are lawyers who have spent and continue each year to dedicate countless hours to the bar examination process, to reviewing bar exams. And those are sometimes people who are, from different practice settings of all types. And they may not be necessarily people who are active in the bar association like I am, for instance, but they go out and contribute in that way. And they are dedicated individuals who really spend a lot of time doing good work. And of course you have the Law School Admissions Council as well. And it's interesting that that when you think about all these different elements of the profession, and you add with that the academia and law school faculties and administrations, what you come up with is that all of those are critical parts of driving success for law students, in addition to the law students themselves, of course, who have such a stake and an investment in their future. And what I see happening all the time is that there is a real belief that we have to have communications that are open. I can tell you that I sit on my law school's Dean's Council, Advisory Council. I went to Tulane Law School. I was fortunate to go there and still have a wonderfully close relationship with the law school. And I see professors, one who I think was out 2 years when I took a class from him, coming in and presenting to the Law School Dean's Council just last month, right before, in the first week of March, as I recall, about online courses and what was happening, what they were doing, and how exciting it was, and how it was making professors think about pedagogy, and how it was changing the way that they teach these courses and what it means. And I thought about what I was seeing before me in this professor who I had thought was a really good professor in the classroom, who had loved teaching enough and loved the law enough that he decided to make sure that he went to this next realm. And that to me was a powerful statement about how much he cares about the profession, about the law, about teaching, and most importantly, about law students.
Thanks so much, Judy. There's a question that's kind of trending, but I'll give you a little breather. So I'll answer one question, and then I'll ask you another.
Thank you.
One of the question, I'll just read it directly. I used to work for the New York State Assembly as a legislative director. In what capacity can my experience be leveraged to help law students shape legislative policies that may affect law students statewide? I really like this question because I think of us all as law students, we're all super type A and we want to do something to change something. And I used to be a legislative aide here in Colorado, and just watching how the sausage make and be a part of the process for that it's exciting. And so to answer that question, it's for what Judy brought up earlier about character and fitness, the mental health questions as it relates to character and fitness. Something that was really cool that happened in New York actually was one of your state senators actually pushed legislation to on the bar application to make all the pronouns gender neutral and then also remove all the mental health questions. And that actually passed the New York State Legislature. That's something that's really great. And there's some, I'm not really good with my, still a law student, but there's some complications with the legislative branch and the judicial branch of making decisions for the legal profession. So I'm not sure where that piece of legislation will take on after that, but another authority is obviously the judiciary, the Supreme Courts of every state. Something when I was trying to push for limited practice in my state was looking first at who was the authority decision makers. And I found out that there was actually a committee in my state on the bar exam, and they were going to be the ones that makes the decisions. And so I didn't know how to reach out to them, even though I kind of knew their names. And so what I did was I reached out to my local state bar association and told them the situation that law students were facing right now. And they have the contacts with the Office of Attorney Regulations in my state. And they're the ones that really helped me lobby it. And so to answer your question, I think what law students can do, again, is just be active in sharing your concerns and proposing solutions as well to the authority figures, because this is an issue that's impacting all law students, and I genuinely think that they do want law student input on it. And so that's my answer to that question, is to just be active at a grassroots level, to talk to who you need to talk to make those changes. I don't know if you want anything to add to that, Judy?
Yeah, I think there's some great skills for that individual who raised the question to get involved in the law student division of the ABA, and to, come not only be a part of us in terms of membership. I hope so many of you have done that and a part of that through your schools, but also, to make sure that you are actively engaged, and, there are opportunities there, and I hope you do explore them. We need all the talent at the table, and we want to make sure that we're having the voices that we need to hear, but also the skill sets that we need to hear, and yours seems to be a pretty good one. So.
And so there's a trend of questions being asked about kind of the future of technology and the trends that we're going to see now. And it's a really good question because I personally I love technology and I love adapting to it. And, with Zoom and online learning right now being tested, it's working. Obviously not to the best. Some students are struggling. I don't want to minimize that with online learning. There's a lot of problems with online learning. But people are probably going to be more open to it now. How do you see the development of technology and how that's going to affect a post-COVID-19 legal profession? Maybe that's in not just in our education, but maybe our court systems, maybe the way we learn, or how we talk to our clients, all the jazz.
Well, I had the privilege back in 2014 for 2.5 years, starting in 2014, to chair the ABA Commission on the Future of Legal Services. And I really came to learn a lot from my colleagues about innovation in technology and the smart application of technology, both in the court systems as well as in our practice settings. And to really think differently, which is what we needed to do and continue to need to do in order to make sure that we are serving the public as best we can, that we're closing the justice gap and critically so, serving efficiently, effectively, just like we expect our doctors and our engineers to do each and every day, is to use the best of what they have, the tools in their tool chest, to make sure that that they are doing their best for those whom they serve. I can tell you that the ABA has become a thought leader on this through our Center for Innovation, which is an exciting place where lots is going on to create tools that can help the public and the profession. Our Law Practice Division, which can be joined if you join the ABA, as one of the ways that you get involved in the American Bar Association, has a Legal Resource Technologies Center, which is fantastic in its knowledge about the ABA. And as we hit this pandemic and we knew people were going to remote work, we instantly wanted to make sure that we were giving them the information that they need. Some had gone to the office every day, put on a suit, driven their car, and went to the same office for 40 years. And all of a sudden, if they wanted to continue their practice, they had to be at home. And so we put together 6 to 10 minute videos about how to use remote tools, how to use Zoom, how to talk and manage people remotely, how to make sure that you kept community in your law office space. And those are all available not only to ABA members, those are available to lawyers across this country on the ABA's website. If you go to ambar.org/coronavirus task force, ambar.org/coronavirus task force, there are tremendous resources on how to work remotely, all kinds of seminars and webinars on how the pandemic is affecting practice, how it's affecting marginalized communities. What is it going to do to child welfare? What is it going to do to domestic violence in this country in terms of making it more of a horrific issue than it even is now? There are ample resources there, including ones on wellness that we think are so critically important. It goes without saying that we need to maintain our communities. We need to maintain our connections. We need to be there for each other. I can tell you, working remotely all these weeks, and I've been somebody who's worked remotely through my past life in-house, and as well as traveling in different parts of the country consistently. We have to affirmatively work to keep these relationships up, and we have to be there for each other as colleagues. And you are our colleagues. You are a part of what we know is the greatest value of the American Bar Association. In so many ways, we give out tremendous resources in CLEs and in these webinars and in publications and in our ABA journal and all the publications of all the sections and divisions and forms. But I will share with you on a personal level that it is this sense of community, of belonging to something that's bigger than any one of us, that keeps me going back and has brought me back to the ABA for almost 40 years now. And I hope that all of you have this sense of belonging over the years to come. And I invite you to be a part of something that Johnnie and I have found, I think, to be a really good place to share our what ifs, to share our why nots, and to share why can't we's.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Judy. And I want to be respectful of your time, and we're running up to the hour, but maybe you just have some closing words, and I'll say something as well. Go for it.
Well, I think we've answered some questions, but I know there are many more, and I know there will continue to be more. I graduated from law school in 1982. I know that sounds like an awful long time to so many of you, and not even a year that you may even be familiar with in any sense whatsoever. And I was excited, I was concerned, and I was scared. But I get the sense that right now, all of you are feeling those emotions tenfold. You're excited, I hope, for what's ahead of you, and I hope you remain excited, because that will pull you through these really difficult times, and they are difficult times. I know you have fears, and I know you have concerns, and I don't have all the solutions, and I don't have all the answers. But what we do have is, I believe, a good sense, because of people like Johnnie and Michaela and others that have come before them, of what law school in these days are like. And whether it's in the law student division or as you transition into the ABA Young Lawyers division, our early career stage of lawyering. And what we know is that community is vital to our future. And that community is helping us to get it right. And we want to get it right more than you know. So keep talking to us, keep being a part of us, and please letting us know how we can do a better job. Because it's only because of you and each of you that we'll be able to do so, to not only serve our profession and to serve all of you, but to serve the public that we care so much about, and to make sure that justice is delivered.
Awesome.
So thank you
so much, Judy. You're so sweet. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. You guys can reach out to me, preferably on LinkedIn is probably the easiest. Just look me up on LinkedIn and send me any concerns or more questions that you guys might have that hopefully I can get answered. Or if you guys have any proposals for ABA policies that we should consider. I want you guys to know that we're accessible and you guys can always reach out to us. And so thank you so much for tuning in. Best of luck with everything. I know it's difficult right now. We got this. We'll make it through. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Johnny, again for inviting me.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you.
Appreciate it.